Hi guys, it's Mishel, Deception Bytes, and it is Monday, August 27th, and it's 8:51 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, I am going to go over today's Q post. Now, yes, that's correct. There's just one, like there was yesterday. And of course, this morning I went over the post from yesterday. Now I'm going over the post from today. And then afterwards, I'm going to do a video on Q-related news because there's a lot to cover there as well. So let's get started. Hope you're all having a good day. I know Monday is a slow day for a lot of people. It's kind of rough getting started after the weekend, but I hope that your day is going well so far, wherever you are, whatever time zone you're in. Let's get started. Now, here, Q sends us to a link on sarahcarter.com, and beneath it, in big letters, he says, big puzzle piece. Well, let's go take a look at what this big puzzle piece is. So here we are, the link, and it says, whistleblower exposes key player in FBI Russia probe. It was all a setup. And let's read what it is that Q wants us to know. Adam Levinger, a former Defense Department analyst, never expected that what he stumbled on during his final months at the Pentagon would expose an integral player in the FBI's handling of President Donald Trump's campaign and alleged Russia collusion. Levinger, a whistleblower, is now battling to save his career. The Pentagon suspended his top-secret security clearance May 1st, 2017, when he exposed through an internal review that Stefan Halper, who was then an emeritus Cambridge professor, had received roughly $1 million in taxpayer-funded money to write Defense Department foreign policy reports, his attorney, Sean Bigley, said. Before Levinger's clearance was suspended, he had taken a detail to the National Security Council as Senior Director for Strategy. He was only there for 5 months before he was recalled to the Pentagon, stripped of his prestigious White House detail, and ordered to perform bureaucratic make-work in a Pentagon annex Bigley calls the land of misfit toys. His security clearance was eventually revoked in March 2018, despite the Pentagon refusing to turn over a single page of its purported evidence of Levinger's wrongdoing. Bigley stated, conservative watchdog group Judicial Watch recently filed a federal lawsuit against the Defense Department to obtain the withheld records. Levinger also raised concerns about Halper's role in conducting what appeared to be diplomatic meetings with foreigners on behalf of the U.S. government because his role as contractor forbids him from doing so, according to U.S. federal law. An investigation by SarahCarter.com reveals that the documents and information Levinger stumbled on and other documents obtained by his news site raised troubling questions about Halper, who is believed to have worked with the CIA and part of the matrix of players in the Bureau's Crossfire Hurricane investigation into Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Halper, who assisted the FBI in the Russia investigation, appears to also have significant ties to the Russian government, as well as sources connected directly to President Vladimir Putin. Halper did not respond to requests for comment. And when Mr. Levinger raised concerns about the DoD's misuse of Stefan Halper in 2016, he did so without any political designs or knowledge of Mr. Halper's spying activities, Bigley told SarahCarter.com. Instead, Mr. Levinger simply did what all Americans should expect of our civil servants. He reported violations of law and a gross waste of public funds to his superiors. And for that, Bigley said, Levinger has paid the ultimate price in his 12-year career as a strategist in the Pentagon's Office of Net Assessment. According to Bigley, shortly after Levinger began reporting and asking questions about suspicious contracts given to Halper and others, including one person closely associated, Chelsea Clinton, his security clearance was suspended. Later, on April 3rd, 2018, The DoD's Washington headquarters service director, Barbara Westgate, sent a letter to Levenger indefinitely suspending him from duty and pay status after his clearance was removed in March. The letter stated, "The purpose of this memorandum is to notify you that I am purposing to indefinitely suspend you from duty and pay status in your position as Foreign Affairs Specialist." Levenger, who is married with 3 children and is the family's primary breadwinner, has been living off the generosity of family members since his pay was removed. The retaliation for whistleblowing was something bigly expected. So we weren't surprised when DoD bureaucrats moved shortly thereafter to strip Mr. Levenger of both his security clearance and his detail to the National Security Council, where he has been Senior Director for Strategy as a by-name request of the incoming Trump administration, said the attorney. Yet we were puzzled by the unprecedented ferocity of efforts to discredit Mr. Levenger, including leaks from the DoD of false and defamatory information to the press, he said. Our assumption was that the other contractor about whom Mr. Levenger explicitly raised concerns, One second. All right. About whom Mr. Levenger explicitly raised concerns, a close confidant of Hillary Clinton, no surprise there, was the reason for the sustained assault on Mr. Levenger, and that certainly may have played a role. Bigley suspects it was more than the Clinton-connected contracts, adding Mr. Levenger unwittingly shined a spotlight on the deep state's secret weapon, Stephen Halper, and threatened to expose the truth about the Trump-Russia collusion narrative then being plotted that it was all a setup. Halper's ties to Russian officials raised serious questions. Halper has had a long career and worked in government with several GOP administrations. At 73, the elusive professor spent a career developing top-level government connections, not just through academia, but also through his work with members of the intelligence apparatus. Those contracts and the information Halper collected along the way would eventually, through apparent circumstance, become utilized by the FBI against the Trump campaign. But it was during this time, hosting the Cambridge Intelligence Seminar at the University of Cambridge, where Halper shifted from a professor and former government consultant to FBI informant on the Trump campaign. In 2016, Halper was an integral part of the FBI's investigation into short-term Trump campaign volunteer Carter Page. Halper first made contact with Page at his seminar in July 2016. Page, who was already on the FBI's radar, was accused of being sympathetic to Russia and sought better relations between the U.S. and Russian officials. Halper stayed in contact with Page until September 2017. During that, I know that this is long, but it is necessary because Q has pointed this out and said that this is a big piece of the puzzle. So I do think that it's important that we understand what exactly Sarah Carter is saying here and what went on. So that is why I am belaboring this. In 2016, Halper was an integral part of the FBI's investigation into short-term Trump campaign volunteer Carter Page. Halper first made contact with Page at his seminar in July 2016. Page, who was already on the FBI's radar, was accused of being sympathetic to Russia and sought better relations between the U.S. and Russian officials. Halper stayed in contact with Page until September 2017. During that time, the FBI sought and obtained a warrant from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court to spy on Page and use Halper to collect information on him, according to sources. The House Intelligence Committee Russia report and documents obtained by this outlet revealed that the bulk of the warrant against Page relied heavily on an unverified dossier compiled by former British spy Christopher Steele and the matter is still under congressional investigation. Steele, who was a former MI6 agent, also has ties to many of the same people, like former MI6 chief Sir Richard Dearlove, who were part of the seminar. Halper, along with Dearlove, left the Cambridge Intelligence Seminar in December 2016, saying they were concerned about Russian influence. Halper had told reporters at the time that it was due to unacceptable Russian influence. Ironically, documents obtained by SarahACarter.com suggest that Halper had also invited senior Russian intelligence officials to co-teach his course on several occasions, and according to news reports, also accepted money to finance the course from a top Russian oligarch with ties to Putin. Several course syllabi from 2012 and 2015 obtained by this outlet reveal Halper had invited and co-taught his course on intelligence with the former director of Russian intelligence, General Vladimir I. Trubnikov. Sorry about that. Had to sound that out there. On May 4th, 2012, the course syllabus states, Ambassador Vladimir Trubnikov will comment on the challenges faced while directing the Foreign Intelligence Service, his tenure as ambassador to India, President Putin, and the likely course of Russia's relationship with Britain and the U.S. In May 2015, Trubnikov returned to teach with Halper at a seminar in Cambridge on current relations between the Russian Federation and the West. Other notable intelligence experts attended the event in 2015, including Major General Peter Williams, a former British commander of the mission to the Soviet forces in Germany. Halper's partner in the seminar, Cambridge professor Neil Kent, has also espoused better relations with Russia and Putin in his writings, and told Russia Today in a 2014 interview that everyone is attacking and demonizing Russia. According to Kent's biography, he was professor from 2002 to 2012 at Russia's St. Petersburg State Academic Institute. Even more interesting are reports from the British media outlet, the Financial Times, that state Halper received funds for the Cambridge seminar from Russian billionaire Andrei Cheglikov, who has close ties to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Cheglikov also funded Veruscript in 2016, which raised the suspicion of Dearlove and those connected to the seminar. Veruscript, a publisher for a Russian academic journal, was suspected by MI6 of being a front for Russian intelligence. Kent also happened to be the editor-in-chief of the journal. He published the inaugural article in the Journal of Intelligence and Terrorism, blaming the West for the Russian invasion into the Crimea, but the journal closed down due to their suspicions. Dearlove was also concerned that Russia may be seeking to use the seminar as an impeccably credentialed platform to covertly steer debate and opinion on high-level sensitive defense and security topics, according to the Financial Times sources. A former senior intelligence official told the news outlet, "It's all smoke and mirrors." Halper was well aware when he was bringing in Trubnikov in 2012 that the Russians were already there at his invitation. The FBI uses Halper to get more information on Trump aides, but it's Halper who has the real connection to Russia. Levenger raised concerns with top officials at the Pentagon in 2016 and noted that Halper went far beyond his work as a contractor after he discovered that the amount of money the professor was being paid for his research did not make sense. Levenger stressed his concern that Halper was not being utilized as a contractor, but that he was also conducting diplomatic work for the Pentagon in violation of federal law, according to Bigley. In one email from Stephen Halper to Andrew May, the second highest ranking official in Levenger's office, Halper writes about a planned trip to conduct meetings in India. "I am in Cambridge, en route to India, arriving Saturday. So far, 14 meetings have been scheduled with various parts of the political military community. On Monday, a meeting is planned with the Delhi Policy Group, where I with the Delhi, policy group, where I will meet with Brigadier Siegel, who is apparently working with ONA, Office of Net Assessment. Can you tell me anything about him?" according to the document obtained by SarahACarter.com. Halper was not only spying on Page for the FBI in 2016, but he also made contact in September 2016 with another Trump campaign volunteer, George Papadopoulos. He invited Papadopoulos, I love that name, I'm sorry, I just love it, Papadopoulos. He invited Papadopoulos to London that September, hiring him with a $3,000 paycheck to work on a research paper under contract. By this time, the young Trump campaign volunteer had already been in contact with the London-based professor, Joseph Mifsud, who had basically informed him that the Russians had damaging material about Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. Mifsud's role has also come into question by Congress. Eventually, Papadopoulos was swept into Robert Mueller's special counsel investigation and pled guilty to one count of lying to the FBI. His wife, Simona Papadopoulos, who's been a vocal advocate for her husband, told SarahACarter.com that essentially he was forced to plead guilty because of threats from Mueller's team and lack of financial resources. After testifying behind closed doors last month to the House Intelligence Committee, Simona told this outlet that she testified to Congress as far as George is concerned. He met with individuals following the same pattern of behavior, and all of a sudden Halper was asking if he was doing anything with Russians. This is the case with Halper, who is now proven to be a spy, possibly with Australian Ambassador Alexander Downer, who her husband met with in London. Before Page and Papadopoulos, there was former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, Army Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. Flynn had been invited to Cambridge in February 2014 for a dinner hosted by both Dearlove and Halper. But during that time, Flynn was already walking a fine line with the Obama administration and battling President Obama and the CIA over his deep disagreement with the administration's narrative that Al-Qaeda and extremist groups had been defeated or were on the run. Several months later, Flynn was forced to resign early and ended his tenure as the director of the DIA. And this is Stefan Halper right here, looking like the weasel that he is. Flynn was pushed out by Obama and then became a thorn in the side of Obama and the Clintons when he joined the Trump campaign, said a former senior intelligence source with knowledge of what happened. The investigation into Trump didn't start with Carter Page or George Papadopoulos, but with Flynn. Flynn was already on the CIA and Clinton target list. Those same people sure as hell didn't want him in the White House, and they sure as hell didn't want Trump to win. Flynn's career with Trump ended as quickly as it came. He was forced to resign as Trump's national security advisor 27 days after taking the job. The highly classified conversation between Flynn and former Russian ambassador Sergei Kislyak was leaked to the Washington Post in January 2017, and he was later questioned by the FBI on that conversation. According to former FBI Director James Comey, the agents who interviewed Flynn did not believe he was lying, but in the end, Flynn pled guilty to one count of lying to special counsel Robert Mueller. He had already spent more than $1 million in lawyers' fees and sold his home to help with the debt. According to sources, Flynn's family was being threatened by the Mueller team. Halper's involvement in the Bureau's investigation started much earlier than the FBI's opening of its Crossfire investigation into the Trump campaign on July 31, 2016. He was already providing information on Page, Papadopoulos, and Flynn earlier that year. And it was in 2016 when Halper told the FBI that he witnessed concerning interactions between Russian academic Svetlana Lakhova and Flynn at the February 2014 seminar dinner. This suspicion, without any proof, was then leaked to the papers in London and eventually discussed in the U.S. media. Lakova told the BBC in May 2017 that when she first saw the allegations raised in the media, she thought it was a joke. Numerous sources with knowledge of the allegations Halper made about Flynn said that they were absolutely false and that Flynn and Lakova only spoke for a short time at the dinner. Several email exchanges between Lakova, Flynn, and his assistant that took place after the dinner were generic in nature, as Flynn had asked her for a copy of a historical 1930s postcard she had brought to the seminar. But it didn't matter that it wasn't the truth, said the former senior intelligence official. It was already out there because of Halper's allegations and the constant leaking and lying of false stories of those to the media. So that is that, and that is a very interesting rendition of what happened. I really was not aware of the deep involvement of Stefan Halper, but it's interesting because now this is out there, and well, it should be. So let's go back and see what Q has for us. Now, Q is telling us that this is a big puzzle piece. And he says, who is systematically arranging the leaks to select individuals? Now, he's not talking about the leaks way back then, okay? I think he's talking about how did Sarah Carter come to have this information? Who leaked it to her? I don't know. Why is this important to drop prior to BO testimony? Now, you may think that this is Barack Obama, but in this, we have to take it in context of what's happening here. This is not Barack Obama. It is Bruce Orr. And I can prove that to you because Bruce Orr is coming this, well, what's today? Today's been such a long day. It feels like Tuesday already, but it's only Monday still. Tomorrow, Bruce Orr is set to testify. So that's how I know that this is Bruce Orr and not Barack Obama, because Barack Obama is not set to testify anytime soon, to my knowledge, but Bruce Orr is tomorrow, and this dropped prior to that testimony. So in the context of this total drop here, which is just one post, it makes sense that this is Bruce Orr. So we're going to go with that because anything else would be nonsensical. Now, this is not from Q. This is a link that I provided just to show you some context here. Here are the questions Bruce Orr needs to answer in his testimony before Congress. Should Orr show up early to talk? House Oversight Committee Chair Trey Gowdy and his fellow members of Congress should get answers to these questions Tuesday. Bruce Orr is scheduled to testify Tuesday behind a closed-door session of the House Oversight Committee. Earlier this month, Republican Representative Devin Nunes outed Orr as an overlooked but important figure in the Obama administration's targeting of Donald Trump's presidential campaign. So it's important before he testifies to have all this information out there, right? I think it's very important. It also helps guide the questions that they need to ask him. Recent revelations confirm Nunes' characterization of Orr in his former position as the Associate Deputy Attorney General under then Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates. Orr began feeding the FBI information from Christopher Steele, the former British spy who put together the unverified Trump dossier. Steele continued providing information to the FBI through Orr. After the FBI had officially cut him off as a source and ordered him to stop gathering intel, Steele had leaked the investigation to the press. Well, that was nice of them. Orr's role as a conduit between Steele and the FBI continued for months and resulted in 12 separate FBI interviews, including several after Trump's inauguration. According to Orr's then supervisor, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, Orr worked on the Russia probe without his permission and without his knowledge. House Oversight and Government Reform Committee Chairman Trey Gowdy promised Tuesday's questioning of Orr would get to the bottom of what he did, why he did it, who he did it in concert with, whether he had the permission of the supervisors at the Department of Justice. Gowdy's vow should be taken with a grain of salt, though, given the slow walk of information that has tarred congressional attempts to investigate Spygate and, in some cases, outright refusals to provide subpoenaed documents. Further, there is a real risk that Orr will refuse to answer the committee's questions, either based on the supposed legal advice of the DOJ or on his Fifth Amendment right not to incriminate himself. Should Orr show up ready to talk, there are questions Gowdy and his fellow members of Congress should ask, arranged by subject. Non-governmental actors. While the Oversight Committee will be most concerned with understanding the role governmental actors played in Spygate, before questioning Orr on those details, Gowdy should first establish the identity of everyone on the outside connected to the investigation of Russia and Trump. We know Orr spoke with his wife, Nellie Orr, who also worked on the Russia opposition research project funded by the Democratic National Committee and Hillary Clinton, as well as Steele and Steele's Fusion GPS boss, Glenn Simpson. Who else, if anyone, provided Orr with information on Russia or Trump? Who else provided Steele, Simpson, Nellie, Fusion, or government agencies information on Russia or Trump? Were there other sources? Were they paid? How did these individuals communicate? What telephone or text numbers, email accounts, or other methods of communication were used? What in-person meetings occurred? Where and why? Next, the Oversight Committee should ask Orr to reveal the name of every individual within the DOJ who knew that he had contacts with Steele and Simpson about the Russia investigation. Similarly, the committee should ask which DOJ officials knew that Nellie worked for Fusion and was involved in investigating Trump. What did those individuals know? When did they know it? Who assigned Orr to the Russia probe and when? Was Rosenstein truthful when he testified that he did not know Orr was involved in the Russia investigation? Did Orr intentionally conceal his involvement from Rosenstein? Why? Did Orr lie to Rosenstein about his meetings or whereabouts while hiding his work on the Russia probe? Who knew that Orr had been keeping Rosenstein in the dark? Did anyone suggest or direct Orr not to reveal his involvement in the Russia investigation to Rosenstein or others? What information did Orr share with others at the DOJ concerning the Russia probe or Trump? Special Counsel Robert Mueller. While theoretically under the DOJ's auspices, Robert Mueller's special counsel team appear to operate independently from the DOJ. Additionally, recent links of communications between Orr and Steele indicate that Steele had sought to be reestablished as a source for the special counsel's investigation of collusion with Russia, with whom connected to the special counsel investigation did Orr communicate concerning Russia, Trump, Steele, Simpson, Fusion, or any other actors implicated in Spygate? When, where, and what did they discuss? Who worked within the FBI or other agencies to reestablish Steele as a source, and who knew of these efforts? Similarly, Gowdy's team should drill Orr on the FBI's use of him as a sieve for Steele's intel and demand Orr reveal the name of every individual within the FBI who knew that Orr had contact with Steele, Simpson, and other sources involved in the Russia investigation. Also, which FBI officials knew that Nellie worked for Fusion and was involved in investigating Trump? What did these individuals know? When did they know it? Did someone within the Bureau direct and oversee Orr's involvement in the Russia probe? Who? To Orr's knowledge, did any FBI agents work with anyone else at the DOJ or other agencies on the Russia probe? Did any FBI agents lie to Rosenstein about Orr's role or other aspects of the investigation? Did anyone with the FBI suggest or direct Orr not to reveal his involvement in the Russia investigation to Rosenstein? other U.S. agencies, or Obama administration officials. With evidence also implicating the State Department in Spygate, the House committee should also establish the identity of everyone within the United States government connected in any way to the investigation of Russia and Trump, who in the Obama administration had any knowledge of the events leading up to the launch of Crossfire Hurricane. What did they know? When did they know it? What did the State Department officials or representatives of other agencies know? And when? Involvement of foreign governments. His status as former MI6 agent also raises the question of whether Steele shared information with Orr originating from the British intelligence service or from other foreign governments. Does Orr know when other governments were also involved in gathering or sharing information on Russia or Trump? Which governments? And who within those governments? How was the information transmitted? Who approved this information sharing relationship? Beyond these general questions, the Oversight Committee should ask an array of specific questions based on evidence that has been revealed or hinted to several troubling aspects of the investigation into Trump. The launch of Crossfire Hurricane. The FBI has long maintained that it launched Crossfire Hurricane on July 31st, 2016, upon learning that former Trump campaign advisor George Papadopoulos knew the Russians had dirt on Hillary Clinton in advance of the late July WikiLeaks publication of the hacked DNC emails. But recently revealed evidence shows that Orr and his wife met with Steele the day before the official start of the investigation into the Trump campaign. What did Steele tell Orr and Nellie at that meeting? What did Orr tell Steele? Did Orr suggest any lines of inquiry for the former MI6 agent? Did Orr share the details of that meeting with anyone else? If so, what did he say? What did they say? Did it have anything to do with the FBI's decision to initiate Crossfire Hurricane? Steele's work as a confidential human informant. Given the meeting between Steele and Orr on July 30th, 2016, and Steele's request earlier that month to chat with Orr about their favorite business tycoon, the House committee should also question Orr on any role he played in the Russia investigation prior to Steele's termination as an FBI informant. Did Steele share information with Orr that Orr conveyed to the FBI? What was that information? Did Orr suggest avenues of investigation for Steele to pursue or share details of the FBI's investigation with Steele or his wife Nellie? Did Steele keep Orr apprised of his investigation? Where was he going? What was he doing? With whom was he talking? Did Orr encourage or approve these lines of inquiry? Did anyone else within the government or with the government? Steele dossier. Gowdy should also quiz Orr about his knowledge of Steele's intel, including what was included in the Steele dossier. How did Steele's intel reach the FBI? Who else had knowledge of the information? What parts, if any, were verified? What conversations did those in the FBI, DOJ, and other parts of the government have about the information included in the dossier, how it was paid for, and how it was used? And did Steele provide Orr a copy of his December 13th, 2016 memo that comprised the final 2 pages of what is commonly called the Steele dossier? If so, what did Orr do with that document? What did the FBI make of the information included? Who knew that Steele had shared the document with Orr or others in the government after he had been officially barred from gathering intel for the FBI? Post-termination intel. Following the FBI's decision to terminate Steele as a source on November 1st, 2016, evidence indicates that Steele continued to feed Orr information which Orr relayed to the FBI. Orr's notes confirm that the day before his first interview with the FBI, he met with former FBI agent Peter Strzok, former FBI attorney Lisa Page, and another unnamed agent. Who was that third agent? What was discussed at that meeting? What prompted the FBI to interview Orr the next day? Who in the FBI discussed using Orr as a go-between for Steele? Did using Orr as a middleman violate the FBI's rules governing sources or the spirit of those rules? What information did Orr share with the FBI? Did that information come from Steele, Nellie, or others? What documents did Steele, Nellie, or others provide Orr that he in turn shared with the FBI? Who paid Steele to gather that intel? Was Steele reimbursed for any expenses for gathering intel? Was Nellie compensated for gathering intel that was then shared with Orr? Did anyone in the DOJ know of, suggest, or approve the use of Orr as a conduit for Steele's intel? Did anyone in the DOJ, including Yates, know of or approve the decision to use Orr as a middleman? Did the FBI provide Rosenstein information laundered through Orr without Rosenstein's knowledge? Nellie Orr's role. While it has long been known that Orr's wife worked for Fusion GPS gathering dirt on Trump, how much of Nellie's research made its way to the federal government is unknown. The committee should require Orr to detail every conversation he had with Nellie concerning Russia or Trump and determine how much of that information made its way to the DOJ, FBI, or others in the government. Orr should also be asked about Nellie's compensation for her work with Fusion to allow the Oversight Committee to determine whether any laws were violated. I would be highly surprised if there were no laws violated in that respect. FISA warrants. The DOJ used Steele's dossier to support its application for a Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act wiretap order on Carter Page. The DOJ first applied for a FISA surveillance order in October 2016, then again in early January, early April, and late June of 2017. Yates approved the first two FISA applications, and Rosenstein signed the final application. In recent congressional testimony, Rosenstein explained that before signing the FISA application, a team of DOJ attorneys reviewed the application and briefed him on its contents. Was Orr one of those attorneys? What other attorneys were involved in the briefing? In his briefing, did Orr include any details that originated from Steele after the FBI had terminated its relationship with the former source? Did the FISA application include any information from the dozen 302 interview forms the FBI compiled summarizing their chats with Orr in which Orr passed on Steele's intel? If so, what did Orr tell Rosenstein about the source of those details? Had Orr informed Rosenstein that Steele had been terminated as an FBI source even though Steele continued to feed the FBI information indirectly? What information did Orr know about the investigation that he did not share with Rosenstein? What information did Orr know that the other DOJ attorneys involved in the briefing did not know? Were any of the DOJ attorneys who briefed Rosenstein also privy to Steele's continued role in the investigation? What about Yates? Had Orr previously briefed Yates on the FISA application? What other agents briefed Yates? Did the application submitted to Yates include any information provided by Steele following the FBI's November 1st, 2016 directive for the former spy to stand down on the case? Specifically, did the January 2016 FISA application approved by Yates include any information contained in Steele's December 13th, 2016 memo or the other documents Steele provided Orr? Did that application include any information Orr obtained from Simpson during December 2016 meeting Orr had with Simpson? If so, what did Yates know about Steele and Simpson's continued role in gathering intel on Trump and Russia? Did Orr inform Yates that Steele had been terminated as a source? Did Orr tell Yates that he continued to receive updates from Steele? Did Yates say anything to Orr which indicated others in the DOJ or the Obama administration know of or were involved in the targeting of Trump? Leaks. A final line of inquiry should focus on whether Orr had a role in any of the many leaks that occurred over the last 2+ years of the Russia investigation. At the Wall Street Journal, Kim Strassel recently highlighted an interesting text between the FBI force of Strzok and Page concerning these leaks. On October 7th, 2016, Strzok texted Page, "Jesus, more Bruce Orr leaks in the New York Times. Whether Bruce Orr refers to Orr, of course, is not yet known, but the House committee should pursue this possibility and ask Orr the names of all media-connected individuals with whom he spoke about the Russia probe or Trump. What did he tell them? And when? Also, there is the real possibility that Orr used Steele as a backdoor conduit to the Beltway chattering class. Did Orr share information with Steele or maybe his wife to feed it to the media? What information? And if Orr leaked to the media, whether directly or indirectly, did anyone at the DOJ, FBI, or elsewhere in the federal bureaucracy encourage or condone the leaks? Did anyone reprimand him for violating DOJ rules concerning media release? These questions, if answered honestly and fully, will provide the House Oversight Committee with a much better understanding of several aspects of the Russia investigation. Unfortunately, the closed-door format will leave Americans in the dark for a while longer, but at least Congress should finally be getting somewhere. Now, that was very, very well done, and these are the questions that need to be answered. Now, we might not know the answers, but that the answers that are given to the Oversight Committee, but there are things being leaked, just like Q said here. SarahCarter.com here exposes key player. Now, so I think that it is important that this stuff start coming out prior to his testimony. I think that it is conditioning all of us to be able to accept things that we may not have previously been able to accept. I think we will accept it. You and I think that anyone that's listening to this is obviously awake and quite aware of Q and everything that's going on within this movement. But the general public, I don't think so. And now this, I'm not going to go into in detail, but I did want to show you briefly. Representative Issa, Bruce, and Nellie Orr should admit they were part of conspiracy against Trump. Says Orr should at a minimum be relieved of authority, and at the very, very, very minimum. So I'm just going to play this briefly, and then we're going to wrap it up.
He knew that Christopher Steele had been dismissed. He knew that the information in that fake dossier shouldn't go forward. As an attorney, there are things you disclose or recuse yourself. He did neither. So the questions will be about the things he clearly knew and did wrong.
That's California Congressman Darrell Issa, who serves on the House Judiciary Committee, weighing in on the significance of Bruce Orr's testimony before Congress tomorrow. Let's bring in Darrell Issa. He joins us now. Congressman, thank you for coming on America's Newsroom this morning. It's good to see you. So we know some things from the president. We know that he's referenced Bruce Orr, it seems, 8 or 9 times in tweets since August 11th alone. He's called him a disgrace. Heading into this testimony tomorrow, what do the American people need to know about Bruce Orr?
Well, I think if you remember Lois Lerner, who appeared to be a career professional, but when you actually looked into it, you found a partisan operative. Bruce Orr clearly is the same thing. He and his wife, Nellie, obviously, she, of course, was working for the organization, Fusion GPS, that created and paid for and worked with Hillary Clinton and the DNC to produce this fake dossier, worked with Christopher Steele, all of which then begs the question of why is it there are 60 texts between Bruce Orr and Christopher Steele? Of course, some of them even after he was dismissed for wrong behavior as an operative. You look at all of that and you say, wait a second, what we have is him as another link, another partisan, as close to this as Hillary Clinton herself.
Do you think you're going to get any answers to those questions in this hearing tomorrow?
Well, I think because Peter Strzok gave us direct testimony under oath of Bruce Orr's involvement, I think it gives us a strong opportunity to ask him for answers, expect those answers, and if we don't get them, then in fact bring them in from a standpoint of real contempt. One of the challenges we've had, and I don't want to pile on, but it's hard not to be frustrated that the Attorney General is not more effective in ordering individuals to cooperate, ordering the attorneys for the Department of Justice to make sure that Congress gets the fullest answers, rather than often they're sitting, as they did with Peter Strzok, next to him just before he was fired and instructing him he didn't have to answer for some reason that obviously wasn't in the best interest of the president, and yet they were trying to claim immunity under effectively the president's umbrella.
The president tweeted that it was a total joke, he said, that Bruce Orr has still not been fired from, as he put it, Jeff Sessions' Justice Department, and he put justice in quotations. He's still employed at the DOJ, is that correct, Bruce Orr?
He's been demoted twice from being the highest ranking non-political person there, the fourth highest, somebody who, by the way, was paid more than a U.S. senator. But he is, in fact, still employed. We would expect that he needs to be fired and possibly prosecuted, but the process is incredibly slow. And, you know, the American people often complain when they find somebody on administrative leave with full pay, but that's usually what happens in a situation like this. In this case, I would certainly think he should be relieved of all authorities and powers until this investigation is completed at a minimum.
What specific questions are you, obviously the text messages are key for you, as you just laid out for us, but this is a real opportunity for you and your colleagues to ask really specific questions to try to change the outcome to, we didn't get any of our questions answered. What are you specifically going to ask him tomorrow?
Well, we want him to confirm what we already know from hard evidence, that he and his wife were part of a conspiracy to, in fact, create this narrative of involvement and wrongdoing by the president relative to the Russians. The fake dossier certainly involves that. Fusion GPS, including his wife Nellie, clearly involves it, and his continued involvement with somebody who had been dismissed for wrong behavior after the fact clearly gives us. So we have a lot of evidence. Now the question is, can we get him to confirm the evidence, or will he deny the truth right before us in writing?
We will all be tuned in for this highly anticipated hearing. Will be happening tomorrow. Congressman Darrell Issa, thank you for coming on the program this morning.
Okay, and that wraps it up. Let's go back out here to Q. Basically, I think that Q is, you know, he put this drop out there just prior to this, you know, testimony of Bruce Orr in Congress, so to the Oversight Committee. So I think that it's important and it's timely, and I think it was important for us to go through this and to understand what it's all about and what it entails and how important it truly is. So that's it for tonight for Q Drops. Anyway, I think I will be back with more Q-related news, but that is all the posts for today, and we're going to wrap it up. I hope that you have a good evening, that you sleep well, stay well, and stay safe.